Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Curious Films continuing coverage of the Turning the Tide 9/11 Justice Conference right here in Washington, D.C. We have the great joy of being joined by Madhava Setty. He was here presenting yesterday at the 9/11 conference. Let everybody know, what do you do for a living? How did you come to the world of 9/11 investigation, and what has led you down the road of data that you've been following?
Well, I'm an anesthesiologist. I've been in practice for about 22 years. Prior to that, I was an engineer.
Okay.
My degree is in electrical engineering, and I spent 6 years working for the Department of Defense contracts.
Okay.
And I had kind of a conversion moment when I was about 25, and I was working on a project that was funded by the Office of Naval Research, and it took us up to the Arctic. And it just struck me. Maybe it was the cold air, or I don't know what it was, but
the fresh air,
the fresh cold air, yes. And I basically came to the realization that I should have come to years before, which is I was in the business of making it more efficient to kill people, right? Or in general, that wasn't actually the project, but that's what defense is.
Yeah.
And so I came back down to the lower 48, and within a couple of months, I was taking classes to apply to medical school. So I had this big, sort of shift in my career. And the reason why I bring this up is that it's interesting because in retrospect, I can see how very, very intelligent people can miss the big picture.
Absolutely.
Right? And
scientists are frequently very myopic in the way they look at things.
Yeah, because they were looking at an interesting problem. It's like, oh, what an interesting problem. Without seeing how it fits into a greater worldview, I would say.
Yes.
And they, everyone I worked with was amazing and very, very smart. The only reason why I was allowed to go was that one of the scientists couldn't pass his physical for being up on the ice for 6-7 weeks. And so because I was working on the project, I was young and I could, do some of the more labor-intensive parts of setting up a camp up there. I was allowed to come. And so it was a really heady experience. But my point here is that these were all very, very good people.
Yeah.
And they were just involved in doing things that I didn't appreciate. Anyway, fast forward ahead about 25 years, and I was, I was the head of my department in a relatively busy community hospital outside of Boston as the director of anesthesia. 2 kids, nice house in an affluent neighborhood. And out of nowhere, we were hosting a dinner at our home with some close friends. And after dinner, we're all sort of looking at our phones, and my wife came up to me and she said, yeah, this never made any sense to me. And I said, what? And she showed me a video of what I thought was a hotel in Vegas coming down. I said, well, what's wrong? What's the problem? And she said, well, the problem is that this happened in Manhattan on 9/11. And then everything changed.
Yeah.
Everything changed.
Yeah.
And it was just something I couldn't let go of. And, rather than going to YouTube and seeing what people say about it, I went directly to the NIST report, NC Star 1A, the final report on the collapse of Building 7.
Yep.
And it didn't take very long to say this is just
it's thrown together.
It's
thrown together.
Yeah, it's not an investigation.
Yeah.
They basically hinge their entire hypothesis on a computer model.
Yes.
Right? Which is a reasonable thing to do, which is you're not going to build a building and see what happens. And so, to be very, very clear here in the essence, in the interest of being precise, if you apply your hypothesis to a model and the model behaves in the way we observed, then your hypothesis could be right. There may be another hypothesis.
Sure.
But if your model behaves differently, then your hypothesis is wrong. There's no question. This is not about, buildings or nanothermite. This is epistemology, how we come to our understanding of what
actual
happens.
Scientific method.
It's a scientific method. So the hypothesis is wrong, yet they said it was right. You can see that their model does not behave with what we saw. So they proved themselves wrong. They proved themselves wrong, yet they are, chanting from, they're writing in official documents that we proved it right.
Yeah.
But it's Orwellian. It's wrong. So in any case, the next thing that happened was an examination of the Twin Towers. And, I remember where I was, just like everybody.
Yeah.
And I was in Philadelphia at the time. I was finishing my last year of training at the University of Pennsylvania. And that morning, the event happened. And what I remember distinctly was the South Tower going down on live TV. Some people, a lot of people saw it in replay, but I saw it live.
Yeah. Same.
And we were all sort of stunned, like, what just happened? Where did the building go? And then later, over the next couple of days, we saw those buildings go down over and over and over again. And then all of a sudden, no more. They wouldn't show it on TV anymore. And we were told because it was very, very sensitive to victims of the families.
Yeah.
Families of the victims, I should say.
Yeah.
So we never saw it again, and I never looked at it again. But after I saw what happened to World Trade Center 7, 16 years later, I had not known about that building. I went back and looked at the footage, the actual video footage of the Twin Towers, and you can see that those buildings are blowing up. There are explosions happening far beneath the crush zone, and it only takes a little bit of, understanding of how the physical world behaves to prove them wrong. Like, forget about, are they squibs? Are they explosions? Is it air compression?
Yeah, the explosives used or anything like that.
That's very hard to say, but anyway, my approach in this movement is to try to find a thread that the average person can grasp onto so they can make sense for themselves.
Yeah.
As opposed to, well, that expert says yes, and this expert
it's a big nebulous issue. And one of those things, like, you don't even have people within the community that agree with each other on many things.
That's true.
So
that's another problem.
Like I work in the world of ufology and phenomena and things like that. And when it even comes to paranormal things like that, you have clashing ideals in the phenomenology of how things work.
Right.
And when you have that, it's hard to come to any kind of scientific consensus, either as an independent investigator coming to science or science now coming to us with things like quantum entanglement, stuff like that. So like it's like we just got done talking with Wayne Costi, and like we said, when presented with new data, you've got to be able to take that dispassionately into your data set as a scientist.
As a scientist. Well, what really struck me was I have friends who are in engineering and mathematics and architecture. And when I looked at the buildings and saw right away that there were laws of motions that were being violated by the explanation we were given, namely the third law of motion, which is, people say that with every action there's a equal and opposite reaction. As it applies to this system, if we think that the top of the building is crushing the bottom of the building, then those forces have to be applied to the top of the building. Yeah. So if the bottom of the building is being crushed, then the top has to be crushed too. I mean, if that's your understanding. So that cannot happen unless the top of the building also gets crushed as it's crushing the bottom of the building. That's something that you can prove to an 11th grade physics class.
Yeah.
However, when I offer this explanation, this simple explanation to people who should know better, all of a sudden their eyes glazed over.
Yeah, you get the shark eyes.
Well, they were like, but what you're saying here means that you're right and NIST is wrong, which is impossible. So let's just move on. And so that's when I realized that we had a much bigger problem. It's not about the science anymore. It's about our programming.
Yeah.
And those who should know best seem to have abandoned their clinical, their acumen about what they should know the most.
The letters after the comma.
The letters after the comma can totally indoctrinate you.
Absolutely.
And so I was stunned to see that this is actually what was going on. And so I took some time away from work. I worked part-time to write a book, which has to do with the bias in our minds.
Beautiful.
And in science and in history. And it was basically, like, most of the book is a setup for the reader to investigate how they come to conclusions.
Yep.
And understand that if you're going to get to the truth, you have to remove bias.
That's right.
From your mind.
Yes.
And
unpolish your filter.
Unpolish your filter. But, a mind, it's not so easy for a mind to recognize its own biases. It's like asking someone to see their blind spots. So you have to approach it obliquely. And that was I think what was
interesting.
What was the interesting aspect of the way I
Yeah.
wrote this book, and it leads you to the seventh chapter, which is now that you've sort of unpacked all of your biases. Now let's look at the irrefutable facts about 9/11 in the effort to open the mind of at least a few people.
Sure.
And of course, things don't really move that quickly, and I don't know how many people read the book, but
Science changes slowly.
Science changes slowly, but I don't think it's about I don't think this is going to be an understanding that's coming from the top down. There's never going to be. I don't think there's going to
No.
be truly an independent investigation that will say, okay, now we know that they blew up. The first of all, the public has to demand it.
Yes.
In order for the public to demand it,
We also still have to have evidence because otherwise all that we can do is look at the flawed things that they have put forth and examine that. If we don't have actual physical evidence, like prime example, in the NIST report, they said they did not look for proof of explosive material because they didn't expect that there would be explosive material. Now, I don't know if that's how you normally conduct a forensic examination, but when you think about a collapse of a building, reports of other explosives being in the town, explosives being used on the World Trade Center previously, you'd think that explosives might be something they look into the collapse of not one, not two, but three buildings.
Yeah, to be very clear, the reason why they gave for not looking is not that they don't expect to find any. They say that nobody was witness to any, which is
not true.
It's demonstrably proven
That's
wrong.
true. Yeah.
And
Thank you.
And the reason why I think that's an important part
Very
of this
important.
is because we have on record, first responders, 118
That's right.
firefighters saying that they were there and they saw explosions. But most importantly, for everyone out there, is that we had 36 media sources saying that there were explosives.
Yeah.
Right. But why didn't they come forward and challenge the NIST's, results sections when they said, well, nobody heard any?
Yeah.
But you heard some. So you need to say, wait, we heard some. So the fact that they were silent means that we're looking at something much, much bigger than, we didn't really figure out. We have a media that's
It's
controlled.
a willful ignorance.
They're controlled.
On the part of science, at a minimum, it's a willful ignorance.
Well,
because
there's lots of willful ignorances in science.
Absolutely.
There's no question about that.
And we talk about that on the show regularly. Like I found in Curious Research, and one of the big things we put up on screen regularly is the scientific process. And the fact of, even if you're a paranormal experiencer, if you observed something, you had a question and you sought more details, you're a scientist, man.
Yeah.
Like, you have begun the first 3 steps of science.
That's correct.
The only question is whether you bought a ticket to the science train or if you're eating a Twix at the station. That's it. So when scientists don't go with immediate observations, people who were boots on the ground, helping, hearing explosives, seeing explosions, like, those are observations. And when you choose to ignore that from the data set, once again, you have not started off with a hard scientific foundation.
Right.
To build that tower upon, no pun intended.
Yes, that's absolutely true. They're not being scientific, but the media is not holding them accountable.
Absolutely.
That, I think, is the bigger problem. That's the bigger problem.
Absolutely.
If the media held them accountable, which means the public holds them accountable, then they will be compelled to do their job. But the media is in cahoots. This is a massive problem for a free people. Is if the media is in cahoots with the government, then we don't have a free society anymore. Yeah. So that is demonstrable proof that they're working together instead of one holding the other accountable. So that is, another takeaway from this. As you're pulling this apart, it's like, we had one building crushing another, explosions. But wait, hold on a second. Why does it take an anesthesiologist to talk about this and write a book about it? Why isn't our media doing it? And so, after 2.5 years of sort of pounding my head, writing a book, I was basically saying, what we need? We need another massive event that will clearly be a deep force that's doing something bad to the public, that's being excused and being shifted to take away our liberties, just like 9/11 was. And within a couple of months, lo and behold, something happened. Yeah. We had a virus that came out of a wet market in Wuhan, China, and suddenly infected the world, global pandemic, and everybody was, told to stay home and put on your masks and wait for the vaccine. And, look, I'm going to be very clear here. I'm a physician too, and I happen to be an anesthesiologist. Okay. And so right away I was like, wait a minute, you want us to put on masks to stop this? like I've worn a mask on my face for 40,000 hours. I know what they can and cannot do. So I'm not a virologist. I'm not an immunologist. But I was like, whoa, wait a minute. You're asking us to put on a mask on kids. Oh, this is insane. This is insane. And so right away I was like, oh my God, this is another big event that's being right. And then it started one after the other. Things started to happen. You had doctors all over the place. You had the CDC saying, well, natural immunity is not going to be as good as vaccine immunity. Wrong. Never the case. How is this being accepted? This is before we even had a vaccine.
It was very interesting to see unfold in real time.
Then I happened to catch, well, I'm going to keep going with this because I really do believe that, this is sort of an appeal to my medical colleagues, not the ones that are necessarily establishment, but the ones I've been working with for the last 3 or 4 years during the pandemic. I left my job to go work for Children's Health Defense.
Oh, wow.
To write about, in a way for the public to understand what's really going on. And all of these things are related. It's very... Look, I'm going to be very clear here. For a long time, people in this truth community didn't want to say anything about COVID because it's like, well, we don't, it's outside our scope.
I had things silenced on YouTube. I had things.
Well, things can be silenced, but you want to keep your movement focused on the truth about 9/11. But we've gone beyond that. We need to come together to make sure that science is done with integrity.
Yes.
And we have two groups of people right now. We have the 9/11 truth movement. And we have the people who have been speaking out about the fact that we've been doing the wrong things about COVID, and the numbers are being gamed. And there's so many places where you can go to show you that our governmental data sets have either been manipulated or being misinterpreted. Just like how many lives were saved. That's all based on modeling, and the models have uncertainty. And how many people were killed by the vaccine? Oh, we're not going to look at that. But, we have CDC's own adverse event reporting systems reporting thousands and thousands of deaths. And we know that system underreports by a factor of, 10 to 100. So for someone to say they're safe and effective is absolutely wrong. And, I know we went off topic here, but it's more about 9/11.
It's more about paradigms of control. And how the media is complicit with science, is complicit with government. And even we get it into the show all the time about the fact of it's hard for a lot of letter-wearing scientists out there to want to say something different because they either are threatened with the removal of their letters, no different than any first responder who reports something may lose their job as a sheriff. If they're like, hey, so I went out to this call for a UFO, and there was this UFO in the sky. If that sheriff reports that, the next time he's on stand, a defense attorney is going to eviscerate him.
Yep.
So I noticed that you have a report that you filed about a UFO. So you believe in strange things like that? That's very interesting for somebody that's supposed to be a forensic person like a sheriff.
Yeah.
Like you could lose cases because of your belief. So it's interesting how those things are suppressed.
Yeah.
And how, once again, even scientists are veered toward the group concept of what the group thinks instead of making a stand and going, no.
Well, that's very true.
Yeah.
It's very true. And to draw some distinctions here, when you talk about the paranormal, you can't really measure that by the ways that...
By normal means.
Right. But here we're talking about data, and we're talking about actual measurable things.
That's right.
And I am continually stunned by how little curiosity there is in the medical establishment and the medical orthodoxy to challenge themselves and to actually read... look, I was a victim of that. I would a study would be shown to me and I would say, okay, I'm just going to read the abstract and the conclusions. Okay, that's what we found. But it's very rare for a physician to go outside their field and read the methodology section.
That's right.
And to read the discussion and to ask for, let me see the raw data. Like, we never do that. We don't have time to do that.
Yeah.
We just trust the peer review process. The peer review process is broken. And it's not just me saying that. We have, ex editors from the New England Journal of Medicine saying it's broken. But we seem to just, close our eyes and just listen to what the experts say.
It's interesting because one of the points I bring up regularly is Sanjay Gupta. Whenever he was head of the World Health Organization, things like that. What was it? Him that was
Sanjay Gupta is the CNN.
Okay, it wasn't Sanjay Gupta then. I'm trying to remember who it was that was with the World Health Organization while people were trying to get medical cannabis going through. And after he left, was like, wow, I never saw the studies that actively showed the medical uses of it.
Yeah.
Because the World Health Organization said for years that like there is no medical benefit to cannabis or marijuana. Because of the studies that they were shown. They weren't shown the independent studies that weren't sponsored by Bayer Pharmaceutical and other companies who have vested interest in that not making it to market.
Correct.
You know, and it's interesting because, yeah, those things are all over the place in science.
Correct. Yes, there's a lot of distortion in science.
Yeah.
But, you know, these are very, very big things. And these have, you know, a direct impact on the average person.
Absolutely.
And there is, like, look, I'm a physician, and I didn't learn about vaccines other than this is when you have to give them. But all of the research that goes behind ensuring that they're safe and effective is absolutely based on a false idea that they've been tested properly, which they have not.
Well, and like you said, the fact that you deal regularly with the respiratory system, you regularly wear a mask. You know for a fact that there is no mask that's going to block a virus from coming out from your breath. It's there to block your spittle.
Yep.
But that's like saying that a condom prevents the HIV virus from leaving the condom. No, that's made to stop the sperm, not the virus. It says on the package that it's don't trust this to stop HIV.
Right.
Because a virus is smaller than the sperm.
Right.
It's a contraceptive.
Correct. Yes. I mean, there
it's
are
the misconception of society and what science gives us.
Right. I mean, there are apparati that you can wear to block it, but that's not what we were asked to do. We were asked to wear a bandana and go in and sit down.
That's right.
Food. So that's what I'm saying. We have to be very, you know, I'm being very particular here because when you generalize, then people just pick apart your argument and say, oh, that's, you know, you can't actually stop it. No, we have to be very, very precise when we're trying to offer a counterfactual argument.
That's right.
And, you know, one of the problems that we're having, for example, with the 9/11 Truth Movement is that there are many people who don't actually understand that they agree with us, but they don't know how to explain it properly.
Yeah.
And they're the ones that can be picked apart and say, oh, well, that person doesn't know what they're talking about. And that, you know, they made this overgeneralization. We have to be very, very clean with our message.
Absolutely.
And that doesn't always happen. And, you know, there's many, many examples of that.
Well, and once again, when you have numerous people who have climbed their parapet of data and made their stand and said, this is what is, it can be hard for the average person to navigate that nebulous space.
Yeah.
You know, because they aren't an engineer. They aren't an anesthesiologist, and an engineer. You were both. So you have a very unique point of view, not only as an engineer, but also as a scientific anesthesiologist. And
but, you know, Chris, the problem here is that it doesn't matter what I think. You know, it really does not matter what I think. You know, someone has to decide whether I'm right or someone who has equal training that disagrees with me is right.
Absolutely.
So how does someone, this is a very important question that should have been asked many times ago, is what do you do when experts disagree? What do you do as a non-expert?
Yep.
How do you approach the problem?
Yeah.
Do you just say, well, I don't know? No, there's a way to approach it, okay? There is a way.
Please.
And I'd like to explain that, yes. Well, the first thing is to, first of all, admit that you cannot know objectively. That's why they're the experts and you're not. So you are not going to be able to objectively say that this person is right and that person is wrong, because this is the situation I'm sort of setting up. You're not the expert, they are. They know more than you about the subject. How do you know? Well, you're not going to be able to know, but you can approach it indirectly. Now, if you look at this objectively and you don't know who's right, what you have here are two people who are saying, I'm right and he's wrong. And if you listen to the other person, they're trying to mislead you. Okay? Like they look like mirror images. They should be, because you don't know. But there's a huge difference. There's always one massive difference. One side is saying, can we have a debate about it? Yeah. And the other side is saying, oh, no. We can't talk about it. If we talk about it, then, you know, people get the wrong idea. Under what circumstances would you believe the person who does not want to have a debate? I mean, that's what we do. We're like, oh, it's too, no, we can't listen to them. Why would you believe them? Okay, that's the first point. The second point is, one side is saying, look, let me explain it to you. I know you're not the expert. But, you know, I'm here to answer questions and I can try to explain it to you. And the other side is saying, You need to trust us.
This is the way it is.
This is the way it is. Look,
Yeah.
you're not an expert. Don't try to play doctor on Twitter. You're not a doctor. This is what the establishment says. I hope people can understand that as a very, very that's an attack on your own character.
Absolutely.
It's like, so you're telling me one side is saying that I'm too stupid to understand it, and the other side is saying, no, actually, I can explain it to you. Why would you go with the side that says
you're too stupid
you're
to
too
understand?
Stupid to understand.
Yeah.
Okay. A third point, and both sides actually they're not exactly different on this. You have to be very, very careful when you hear a group of people who are telling you to believe them start vilifying the other side.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes.
I do not have an applause button on this system, but I
Yes.
do at home, and that is when I would hit it.
And again, it has nothing. It's not about being a nice person.
No.
You have to understand what's happening in the person's mind.
Yes.
In order to actually vilify someone and say, "Oh, they're stupid," or they're dangerous, you shouldn't. They're bad people.
Yeah.
Okay. Once you commit to saying that, you have to be 100% certain you're right.
That's right.
You have to be, right? Number one, I would say it's impossible to have 100% certainty. Now, what happens to the person who spent a year and a half denigrating people? How easy is it going to be for them to change their mind?
For them to backpedal.
Correct. They might be able to say, "Oh, yeah, I was wrong. My mistake. I didn't know enough."
Yeah.
Saying that I was a jerk,
Yeah.
that's really hard. So now you're dealing with another group, the same group that doesn't want you to argue, that doesn't want you to have a debate. They're now stuck in a situation where they are biased into holding on to their position because they don't want to be embarrassed by being a jerk.
Yeah.
So for all of those reasons, as a non-expert, you should be able to say, I'm going to go with the person who wants the debate, who wants to explain it to me and is not being a jerk.
That's right.
Okay, you could be wrong, but here's the other question, is if that side does not want to have a debate, how would they ever know they were wrong?
Yeah.
So you could be right, but if you're wrong, you may not be, you may not be able to correct your course of action for a very long time.
Yeah.
So everything should point to the other side. Like with regard to COVID, go to the experts and physicians who have a counterfactual position, who want to have a debate.
That's
Why
right.
won't you listen to them? So, this has been spelled out in
Yeah.
social science experiments before in the 50s.
Yeah.
With Solomon Ash. Are you aware of him?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And to be clear, you are not saying that vaccination doesn't work or anything like that. You're saying that specifically in this case,
Yes.
this is the situation.
This is the situation.
And feel free to look at it. It's a pretty fascinating situation.
It's a very, very fascinating.
I brought that up the entire time.
Yeah.
On my show regularly. The fact of we are still in the midst of this. Like there's no way by science that we can have the answer yet.
Yeah.
Like that's like saying that because we've done a 1.5 year long study about this medication that we know what the intergenerational effects are going to be if somebody's on this medication and has children. What's the effect on them
We don't know.
3-4 years down the line? If
We
you're
don't know.
not doing a generational study, then you don't know
Right.
those things. So you
yes.
can't say that for a fact.
You can't say it for a fact. That is very true. We're not looking at these things in a long-term sort of range of observational period.
Yeah.
But look, let's just go back to this time of the start. Just like right after 9/11.
Yeah, please.
Like, what about right after the vaccine came out?
Mm.
How many people knew what to ask their doctor?
Yeah.
None. Here's the utility of a vaccine, for example, is not in its efficacy.
Mhm.
People say, "Oh, it's 95% efficacious." I would say probably maybe 1/3 of doctors don't know what vaccine efficacy means.
Yeah.
Okay. But that's not the metric for the utility of a vaccine. The utility of a vaccine is how many people do you have to vaccinate in order to prevent an outcome?
Yeah.
Right.
Like
That's
smallpox.
That's the number
Prime
needed to
example.
vaccinate. How many? The reason why you need to know that number is that now you can make a risk-benefit analysis.
That's right.
If you need to give 1,000 vaccines to prevent the outcome, how many adverse events are you going to cause? That's how you do it.
Mm.
Most doctors I've talked to are recommending the vaccine. They had no idea what the number needed to vaccinate was. But that's why we need to talk to the public and say, this is what you need to ask your doctor.
That's
and
right.
ask them to go find out. And when they say, holy cow,
Well,
I need to vaccinate 2,500 people with this COVID vaccine to keep them out of the hospital, that's a pretty crappy vaccine.
Unfortunately, for the last 20 years, though, we have straight up commercials that are like, go ask your doctor if
Yeah.
you need to be on this medication.
That's right.
without any explanation of the symptomologies that it's helping or things like that. It's going to tell you the adverse effects.
Yes.
But it's not going to tell you like everything that you need to go. Do you need to even ask your doctor about this?
You're right. We
You know?
we need to have an intelligent public in
We
order
do.
to expose the lack of intelligence coming from the orthodoxy.
That needs to be on a T-shirt.
Right. Yes. But this all comes down to public outreach, which is sort of like what I like to do is to write about
Absolutely.
things. I have a Substack that I'm, promoting because I stopped writing for Children's Health Defense. But these are the kinds of issues that have to be
Well, they've got to be
raised.
confronted head on. You've got to be able to ask the question.
You need to have a public that's curious.
And absolutely.
And that's another problem. And there's no way. Here's the thing. I've thought about this a lot, and I know we're winding down here, but my
It's
point
okay.
here is,
We have plenty of time.
how do you instill curiosity in a person? It's very hard.
You got to start like
Well,
when they're young. Hopefully, you've instilled
yeah,
it.
but even then, it's like some kids
How
are
do you-
curious.
Well,
and
how do
some
you
kids are
keep
not.
the curiosity? Is the
Well,
thing.
how do you make a non-curious person curious? And
Yeah.
I would suggest to you that you cannot. People are inherently curious,
Yeah.
and some people aren't.
Yeah,
How do
that's
you
true.
suppress curiosity? Oh, it's very easy. Fear.
Yeah.
If you're fearful, you're not going to ask like, "Well, I'm not so sure about the solution." You're just going to go with what you want to believe that someone's there to save you.
Yeah,
So before we go into a place of negativity, it's like, oh my gosh, there's nothing we can do because they just keep instilling fear, making us less curious. There's no hope. There is actually an antidote.
Mm.
The antidote is suffering. When you've suffered enough, now you're like, what am I doing wrong? Like, tell me something. Am I doing like why
there's
is this
got to
happening?
be an answer.
There's got to be an
Yeah.
answer. I want to do something different. So it's not hopeless, but and it's almost a balance, a metaphysical balance, because if they're imposing things upon you and the population that get you to suffer and be fearful, eventually it's going to backfire on them when people say, that's enough.
Yeah.
I really need to know more about this before you tell me to do the next thing. And that's what we're seeing right now. Like, when 9/11 happened, yeah, they got their way, but a lot of people woke up to, wait a minute, they're lying. When they got their way with COVID, a lot of people said, wait a minute, this is like, now we're in a very, very interesting moment in our history.
We are.
Yeah, it's an inflection point. And that was, basically the commentary that I had to offer to
Yeah.
start off the symposium here yesterday,
Absolutely.
was that this is a turning point, and we have to visualize that this is going to happen, that it's going to change.
Yeah.
Visualizing, there's no hope, and being nihilistic about it is not going to help.
Yeah, no. Negativity doesn't help us do anything. It doesn't help a conversation. It doesn't behoove a conversation.
Yep.
It actively drives people apart and makes people not want to talk. When
Right.
there is a common ground that can be found, and once again, I love the idea that you are teaching people to come to the point of objectivity with what they think about, because that's something that we talk about all the time. Is
Yes.
the filters through which we see things. I have an older brother, and the example I give is, you come to both of us and ask us what Christmas in '85 was like, we'd probably both mention Castle Grayskull as the toy that we got.
Yeah.
But beyond that, we would have different experience. We would have different observation because we're different independent people seeing things through a polished filter of life experience.
That's true.
And that's something that you have to be willing to take 3 steps back from
Yeah.
and go, wait a minute, maybe I'm viewing all of this through my actual just lens of experience and not looking at the points of datum
Mhm.
that make up the data set.
That's right. Well, yeah, it's a big challenge.
It is.
And yesterday, I made an appeal to all of the doctors I worked with, even though it was a 9/11 event.
Yeah.
And this is when you do that, people in our movement start to get a little bit annoyed. Some people do, because like this is about 9/11. This is not about COVID. It's not about medical freedom. But at some level, we've been at it for 24 years.
It's about the freedom to ask the question.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, some people feel differently than I do about it.
Sure.
I'm not saying that you have to believe what I think
No,
about the
absolutely
COVID
not.
vaccine. But my point here is that we have a very, very smart group of people who have been able to dissect very complicated pieces of information and come up with a cohesive argument against the COVID narrative. These are the people we need on our team. It's not about, it's like you need to come over here. You know how hard it is
Let me show you this data set as well.
Yes, yes. And we're up against the same thing that they're up against for 4 years.
That's right.
We've been up against it for 24 years.
Yeah.
It's the wholesale manipulation of the way science is done. And so we have to come together. At some point, we are going to come together because we have a common adversary, which is the media. If the media was fair, they would have given voices to doctors like me during COVID. If the media was fair, they would be giving voices to people that are out there right now talking about all of the science, but they don't. So we need to get to the media. People have to say that media system is messed up.
2012, I bring up regularly.
Mm-hmm.
Feel free to look this up, folks. I will look at the camera as I say it. Smith-Mundt Act. Just Google Smith-Mundt Act struck down 2012. The Smith-Mundt Act is actively what prevented propaganda, government-created propaganda, from being disseminated through the news. That was struck down in 2012.
That's an interesting thing.
That was an actual law that we had in place that they were like, that needs to go. And shortly after, there were reports of government reporters that were there to make sure that these things were put out in the news.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all news agencies, folks. I don't care whether you're talking red or blue. Feel free to go look up Project Mockingbird. Or Operation Mockingbird.
Operation Mockingbird.
Yeah, the idea of putting these people into news organizations to falsely lead foreign governments, all kinds of things. So this is a normal black bag tactic. This is no different than what we did against Tokyo Rose back in Korea, when Tokyo Rose was broadcasting to our troops and we were broadcasting to North Korea and China, no different than pamphlets that were dropped by both sides over jungles in Vietnam.
Yeah.
This is the propaganda campaign.
That's right.
And that's once again red versus blue, and it's something that we bring up on the show all the time.
It's not
when you're looking through that polarized filter of red or blue, you will never see the red looking through a blue filter, nor will you see the white light in the middle.
Correct.
You will only see blue.
Yeah.
And that's an important thing to consider. You've got to be willing to read 3 sources a day of news that you don't trust about the same topic.
Yeah,
because it's a dissenting opinion, and you've
right.
got to be open to dissenting opinions.
You have to be, well, you don't have to. It's your choice, right?
Sure.
But if you want to get through this, you need to start looking a little harder.
Yeah.
And like you said, these red versus blue, unfortunately,
it's a didactic
Charlie
of
Kirk
control.
died yesterday.
He did. And that's why I bring it up, because it's an important thing in our country. It's something that is catalyzing us toward literally violent action against each other, toward violent action against other parties, when this is supposed to be a country where the beautiful thing is, before the Constitution, we have the Declaration of Independence, which says you are guaranteed the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And the Constitution is there to protect that.
That's what I'm saying.
That exact sentence.
What I'd like to say about that is, we asked for a few moments of silence.
Please.
Yesterday, when we heard about Charlie Kirk's murder. And I thought it was necessary.
Absolutely.
As well, even though I don't necessarily agree with Charlie Kirk.
Me neither. And I'm a former Catholic seminarian, my friend. And
the interesting thing is that, someone in the audience came up to me today and they said, "How dare you ask for a moment of silence to recognize Charlie Kirk?" And, it's someone who didn't, believe or agree with what he said. And the point I'm trying to make is that this movement is made up of people of all different sorts of
both sides.
Well, it's people who don't want to forgive Charlie Kirk or feel like, and people who recognize this as a terrible thing.
Yeah.
And then others who say, it's someone died. Like, don't you understand that this is, if you think that it's okay to kill someone because they say things you don't like, then what business do you have?
That's a dangerous precipice to land on. And to stay on and build a tent
I'm not saying that
on.
they're wrong. I'm just saying that let's recognize that we are a heterogeneous group of people with different ideas.
Yeah.
But if we want to offer a counterposition to the hegemony, we have to come together. We can't sit there and say, "Well, you wanted a moment of silence for Charlie Kirk, and I don't like what he's saying." It's like, come on, man. We have to come together and say, protect every single life, even if you disagree with what they're saying. That's my view. It may not be yours, but.
Yeah.
What chance do we have if you're going to sit there and actually tell me that this is a bad idea?
It used to be a quote on the corner of our website. and it was, I may not agree with what you were saying, but I will die for your right to say it.
Right.
And that's just it. I'm almost weeping right now just thinking about this and the other people in the other room, simply because we have gotten to a severe point with all of this.
We have.
Madhava.
Yes, we have.
All of it.
Absolutely. And, we can sit here right now the day after and conjecture what was behind his murder. And if I were to guess, based upon what I'm seeing with, all of these deep state,
the recoil reactions.
Yeah, it's like people will say, well, it was the people supporting, transgender people wanted to see him dead, or it was people who were anti-Israeli wanted to see him dead. I don't know, but you know what? If I were to guess, it's the deep state, or it's people who are trying to divide us.
Absolutely.
It's, because
Absolutely.
he may have actually been starting to make inroads into seeing things slightly differently.
Yeah.
And he may have been convincing people on the left to say, look, you're not seeing things correctly. Anytime you have a character like that with that kind of following,
a polarizing character.
No,
Definitely.
I'm saying that he was starting to build bridges. He was starting to come around and say, oh my gosh, maybe I could be wrong about this. And you guys on the left, maybe you could be wrong, because I'm making a pretty good argument for why you're wrong. I'm not left or right in this. I don't vote, on the national level.
Yeah.
But my point here is that if he was making inroads, that's the dangerous man to the deep state. That's the person.
True.
So before we start, vilifying him, or characterizing him as super red or super conservative, he may have been someone that they looked at in a very different ways. Like this guy could be coming around. And he's friends with Tucker Carlson, who's also made some, amazing observations.
Inroads on both sides.
Right. Those are dangerous people to people who want to divide us. So that's the way I look at it. So I think we should recognize that. Even if we're wrong, let's recognize the good side of the guy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that is a beautiful point for us to end this on,
Very
is
good.
the idea of, moving forward. It's like people said at 9/11, if we live in fear, we've let the terrorists won. Quite literally. And even if you're living in fear from the government folks, even if you're living in fear from the other side,
Correct.
You are fully feeding that fire oxygen.
Yeah,
you aren't robbing it of it.
Yeah, fear is hard to,
it's tough to get out of.
Yes.
It's hard to get out of.
It's very hard to get out of.
Sides.
Yes, you have to have a deeper understanding of yourself. And it's not just the fear, right? I mean, like we were told right after 9/11 that they hate us and they want to take away our liberties, our freedom of speech, or freedom
and then we removed our liberties.
That's what I'm trying to get
to make sure that these things were protected.
And within weeks, we signed the Patriot Act.
Yep.
And suddenly we said we can incarcerate based only on suspicion. We can admit testimony taken under torture.
We can
also
mass swath your data.
Extraordinary rendition.
Yep.
And then we need surveillance. I mean, we lost before we even set foot in another country. We gave it all up. We lost.
Yeah.
Let's like
as
that's
a people.
What yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So it wasn't the soldiers that failed us. It was our leadership that failed us.
Yeah.
They made us afraid, and we gave it all up.
Yeah.
We weren't defending anything anymore. We were just killing people.
Madhava, these are the topics that we talk about on this show all the time. Thank you so much for coming on. I want to have you on again and again to talk about your book and talk about these concepts, because quite literally this is part of what we're trying to do, is build these bridges amongst communities that are staunchly against each other for some reason, when really what's supposed to happen is all of us meeting in the middle and finding a way to hear each other's paradigm.
Yeah, precisely. Yes. Thank you for giving me some airtime, Chris.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Anytime and always. Before we let you go, make sure to look at the camera, let everybody know where they can go to find your book, where they can go to find your continued work, everything else.
Sure. The book I mentioned earlier was called Woke, an Anesthesiologist View. You can find it on Amazon. My Substack is entitled An Insult to Intuition, which I attack all different kinds of ideas. It's basically a critique of scientific orthodoxy.
Beautiful.
And I approach things like consciousness as well as vaccines and 9/11, war, and humor. That's where you can find most of my material, and I have a lot of stuff that I've published on children's health defense during the pandemic. I'm no longer associated with them, but I stand by every single word I wrote, and that would be it. So
absolutely. Once again, thank you so much for your time during this very busy Turning the Tide conference.
Thank you for having me on.
Hold on real quick. While you were online checking out all the amazing work of Madhava Setty, everybody, make sure to stop on by Curious Realm. CuriousRealm.com is where you can like, follow, subscribe. That is where you can find all of the episodes from amazing events like Turning the Tide 9/11 Justice that's happening right here in Washington, D.C. When we come back from this quick commercial break, we will be here with our continued coverage of this amazing event right after this, folks.
The key to good science is good research. At the heart of good research is a good data set. With the field observation and encounter log from Curious Research, you can easily keep track of your investigative information all in one place, making it easier to review cases and readily see comparisons and contrasts between them. Whether out in the woods squatching, in a back room gathering EVPs, or using high-tech gear to track UFO, UAP activity, this easy-to-carry, pocket-sized scientific data log is the perfect companion for any field researcher. You can find your copy of the Curious Research Field Observation and Encounter Log at Amazon.com or visit the official Curious Realm store at curiousrealm.com/store to reserve your copy for yourself, your family, or a mind that you want to open. That website again is curiousrealm.com/store.